Good evening, listener, and welcome to another edition of Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. Last week on the program, we had the privilege to explore the electoral bills in the National Assembly, and we were honored to have Honorable Francis Waive with us in the studio. Today's discussion will focus on electoral amendments and its impacts on elections. My name is Nwadishi, your uncle. Electoral Reform Hour is a program aimed to foster inclusive dialogue among citizens from various backgrounds concerning electoral reform and constitutional amendment, and also to enhance public understanding and awareness regarding electoral reform issues, and compile and present citizens-derived recommendations to the National Assembly and INEC for consideration. This program is brought to you by Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa with support from MacArthur Foundation. You don't want to miss any edition of this program. Elections have a significant impact on democratic governance in any country, and the outcome of an election can lead to changes in government policies, economic conditions, and the overall business environment, which can either support or hinder economic growth. A peaceful and credible election can bring stability and certainty. Encouraging economic growth, elections are the essential root of democracy. A strategy for improving the integrity of elections are a reality in almost all countries of the world. The development of an equitable, transparent, and fair electoral process is the foundation for the strengthening of a healthy democracy. In order to ensure these futures, such as laws governing the elections, promoting transparency, accountability, and the professionalization of electoral management, among others, are necessary. Today, joining me in the studio to discuss electoral amendments and its impact on elections, Alhaji Hussaini Pai, Sarkin Yaki Pai. Alhaji Hussaini began his career as a teacher and rose through the ranks to become the pioneer principal of Government Secondary School, Yangoji. He later served as Education Secretary in Gwagwalada Area Council and held significant administrative roles, including Executive Chairman of UBEB and Executive Secretary of FCDA. His tenure in INEC has been marked by his service as Resident Electoral Commissioner in Ekiti, Kogi, Kano, and Plateau states, all spanning through 2011 to 2022.
Yes.
And I'm also joined by my sister, my friend, Mrs. Faith Nwadishi, Executive Director of Center for Transparency Advocacy. Faith Nwadishi is the Executive Director of the CTA, a non-profit organization that monitors and evaluates government and agency service delivery in Nigeria. She's also a chartered negotiator and mediator and a gender expert with specialization in the extractive industry, EITI. Faith sat on the board of EITI for some 4 years? 6 years. Welcome, both of you. Thank you for joining us at this Electoral Reform Hour.
Good evening, our listeners.
Thank you so much. Good evening, listeners.
You are welcome to the program. I will start straight with Alhaji Hussaini Pai.
Yeah, welcome.
You have observed, not just observing, you've been critical to election administration as a resident electoral commissioner in virtually 4 states.
Yes.
And I know you observed the just concluded general elections. From your findings, what truly are the issues that you think require reforms?
Well, thank you very much, Oga Ezewa, my friend. Truly, one could say that the 2023 elections have come and gone, of course, with its own usual peculiarities, because each election has its own unique peculiarities, though there are general, things that happen. But having observed it closely, one could say generally, really, it has been largely successful. Of course, there are certain challenges which they are very noticeable, and one could adduce as many as one could think about or make sense of. For example, the aspect of the transmission of results, it has really brought up certain hullabaloo, because some of these electronically transmitted results were nowhere to be found, but some, were found. So you see, that is an issue that, of course, would need a reform, either in ensuring those that are handling this electronic device would need additional, training, or right from the onset, because we heard from INEC that actually at a time those things have been hacked. So how do we ensure that next time, these things are being prevented? That is the hacking. And that goes to say that whatever we are doing to advance the technological aspect, we must actually test it and try it severally before we apply it. Because it was, I must say, that it was really, an issue which became an embarrassment, that we were told that this thing will be seen real time. And the real time came, but it was not real. Therefore, I think that aspect, in my candid opinion, would need to be looked
I think you've identified issue of training.
Yes.
Training the
those the handlers.
The handlers of the electronic devices that are deployed for elections, and you also talked about testing.
Exactly.
Yes. So, but if, for instance, you are talking about IREV and BVAS, and that test started from the Nasarawa elections.
Yes, on a much smaller
scale
elections. But then what it demands is a larger scale test, as far as I'm concerned, because even those time when we were on, unfortunately, in 2023 we are not on board, but at least we have seen, as you said, we have observed what has happened. Has really happened.
Thank you. Faith, you've virtually become a veteran election observer now, because you've seen many of these elections and you've played very active roles. From your findings, what are the key issues that you think require reforms?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you again for having me on this program. When we talk about key issues for electoral reforms, we need to look at it from the point of view of pre-election, election day, and post-election, because all of these contribute to the output of the elections that we have. We look at it as the electoral value chain. What is it that we need to? And having observed that, the first fundamental thing that we should look at is actually the role of the political parties pre-election. they have this particular role, pre-election, election day, and post-election. Unfortunately, the political class are the beneficiaries of everything that we do in the election, but they seem to be the weakest link. Okay, so when you talk about pre-election, you're looking at party primaries, internal party democracies. We don't have that. Starting from the amount that is set for people to buy tickets or buy their forms, there's exclusion of certain classes of persons. So you have the political class coming out to talk about, the outcome of an election when they have not properly prepared for it going into that election. So issues around political party internal democracy should be taken very seriously. But political parties, I also think that some of these things that happen within the political parties, though they have freedom of expression and whatever they do, should actually be legislated on, should be looked at in the electoral reforms or legal framework that we have. Then the other one, again, that should actually be of concern to everybody is also the role of the security agents. So you have a constitution that saddles the police, for instance, with issues around security for any kind of crime. But when it comes to elections, the police and security agencies think it is a special kind of crime that needs a special kind of reporting to do. So an election day, something is happening, and as a citizen, you call the attention of the police. The police says, INEC must give us the instructions to do that. We should find a way around that, and also be able to hold people accountable. Then for me, post-election, citizens being able to hold those that they have elected in office, accountable. Citizens should also play that role, because when you look at it, for instance, pre-election, election, the issues of vote buying and all of that, you have a willing seller, a willing buyer. So at the end of the day, citizens sell their rights to the people and lose the authority to be able to hold people accountable. So these three things are fundamental for me. I think we should look at some of them we can address using legal frameworks. Some of them we can address using perhaps voter education and getting people to understand that the process of an election from the beginning to the end actually sits as with citizens being in the driver's seat.
Yeah, so thank you. You've identified legal issues around that could be legislated upon, and you talked about attitudinal challenges as well. But I don't know how much you followed Waive's, Honorable Francis Waive's bill. Yes. And I know the reason we took the pains to bring you is because you've been in elections, and he was here last week. So my pain was, what are the practicability of some of those issues that he's raising? Things like legislating legislating IREV, 1 day election, and all of those things. Let me start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so I think there are some progressive things in that, but there are some others. For instance, I don't understand why you have to review the voter register every 10 years. And from his proposition, he says that there should be a new registration of voters. That's the way to weed out people who had died. So the first thing I've been thinking, in fact, since I heard that bill, I've been thinking about the fact that, okay, so let's say we have the birth register. Do you need to have to go, take a new registration for people to know that these people are Nigerians? I think what we should do and what we've been advocating for is to find a way to harmonize all the biometrics we've been doing in the country so that we have one. If you have your NIMSI card, for instance, it should be able to carry all the data, social security, like it's done everywhere. Just that one card. So when you vote, everything about it is there. You don't need to carry an INEC card. You don't need to carry a voter's card. You don't need to carry all of the cards that you need. If you are going for international passport, also you do the biometrics and all of that. We should find a way to harmonize that, and then from time to time also work with National Population Commission, because National Population Commission keep the register of birth and death. deaths.
Yeah.
So if we properly do that, perhaps we have a proper legislation that allows people to register deaths. It goes into the register immediately, and that name is taken away. Also, the idea of double registration of persons can be taken away if we do the proper review of the system, so that if you're putting the same, because some people who want to be smart, they will put their first name and surname, and the other one want to be smart, but there are certain data, like for instance date of birth, your ward, those things remain. So if you put them and they come, they should be able not to let you register. And that, for me, I think that is something that we can look at, rather than asking that every 10 years you review the voter register by carrying out another registration of voters. Then the other one again that he mentioned, that we should have all of the elections on the same day. Well, if you look at it cost-wise, value for money, you may say, oh, okay, this is right, the right thing to do. But like in some other claims, if we have that, why would we saddle INEC, for instance, with the voting of persons, let's say persons from a constituency, like senators have a constituency. Every state, you have 3 senatorial districts, and that vote is specifically for those people there. So why would people are already clamoring that INEC should now go back and do local government elections and do all of that? So what is the role of the people? I find that people don't really understand the importance of the hierarchy of the elections that we have. A lot of people put more emphasis on presidential elections, and if you look at them, where they are is far taken away from the presidency. They don't put the same effort they put in the presidential elections like they put for their senatorial district, local government, at the subnational level. Yeah. So if we have that kind of election where citizens within the subnational level concentrate and understand that if I need dividends of democracy, for instance, I should actually put focus on my local government chairperson, my House of Assembly member, my House of Representatives, and my senatorial district representative, so that at the end of the day, when you vote, you will understand the different mandates of these different people. But because a lot of people, when you go back to the communities, you see senators, House of Rep, House of Assembly members doing things that the executive should do, and they are judging them based on that. The same senator, House of Assembly, and House of Rep member will be on that seat for 4 years and has never raised a resolution, talk less of the only time
it's more interested in facilitating projects.
Exactly.
Alhaji Pai, you've been at the thick of this.
Exactly.
In terms of first having these elections in one day. Then the
aspect of the
voter register,
review of the
voter register every 10 years.
Yeah.
What's your take?
I think my take, as somebody who was there, on the renewal of the voters register, as my sister here has said, it's better we keep on what we're doing to update, only to remove, to find a way of ensuring that we remove those that should not be there. For example, the dead. Because as it is now, there is the need for a legal reform in a way that INEC has been saddled with the responsibility to register. But there is no clause where it says it can delist. Therefore, rather than starting afresh, I think there should be a reform to give that power to INEC to ensure that those people that should not be there, like those who have died, the power to delist them, to remove them from the register and bring in those that were before the election less than 18 years. In other words, we can keep updating. And as the madam here has said, in terms of, they have devices. If you want to play smartness, they can identify wherever you have registered doubly, they can quickly fish out your name. So there is no need of any fresh election, fresh registration as far as I'm concerned.
The reason I'm going to stay with you is because you've been in this. The behavior of the politicians does not help in terms of removing the dead.
Yes.
Because you know, and the stories are everywhere,
Exactly.
that because you don't even have death certificates and all of those challenges,
And
sometimes even politicians have produced death certificate for somebody who is alive.
Is alive. It's true.
So if you go and remove a name from without
that is why there is the need for that legal reform, to ensure that really INEC is being given that power to delist. Because we tried it in when I was in Plateau, but then this legal tussle, because if you delete somebody, his relation may ask you, who told you
that he's dead?
That he's dead? And from there, in fact, we started like a pioneer project with this present chairman. But halfway, we were stalled. And then in the end, we even learned that there is no provision for delisting of this, but that is for registration.
So have you looked at this delisting thing in terms of, do you think it's something that we can explore in terms of advocacy
Yes.
and in our push for a cleaner voter register? Because there is also the claims and objection period in which citizens are meant to go check whether their names are proper and then can also point out people who have died. But I don't know what the challenge is in terms of...
That is where the challenge is. During that period, one, because I think my sister here have a great job to do in advocacy, because a whole week is usually being given between one tranche of voter register and the other. Believe you me, not more than 5% will go and check. And if for any reason somebody tells you as the commissioner for that state that so people are dead, and you attempt removing the name, you will be surprised how they got the information. The chief and the other people will come say, who said that those people? Because they think by removing them, you are reducing
their voting strength.
Their voting strength. So if they are dead, they don't want to accept that one. But if there is any law that empowers INEC, I think that would be good. And coming to this one-day election, in fact, ordinarily, I know INEC has continuously been advancing technologically since 2011. We started with only e-register, that's electronic register, smart card reader. We are now with beavers. So, and each stage, things are getting more difficult for people to actually rig. And that's why the issue of vote buying has come in, because they cannot rig again. Now they have to go back to the people to buy the votes. But, you see, we need to take it stage by stage. To conduct one-day election of all the offices, definitely it will take a more advanced, technology. And it will require something like online voting, where maybe even the diaspora. But then Madam here has said, how do we now define who has not voted for who? Because as it is now, you are going to vote in the polling unit where you have registered, and therefore you know whom you are actually voting for. Though even there could be that technology, but I think we are not yet there, frankly speaking. And number two, this everything is by legislation. There has to be a legislation that, yes, in Nigeria, the election now will be electronic voting. Using electronic is different from electronic voting, because you cannot just stay where you are and do electronic voting with this our type of quasi technology and manual. You need to be there physically. So I think let's take it JJ small by small.
Fred, before we go on break, I'm thinking, what do you think beavers? Because the whole idea of beavers is to eliminate voter identification theft. And then the people who are proposing bills in terms of cleaning of voter register, are they reckoning with the incremental progress that this introduction of technology is bringing into the play?
In fact, one of the provisions of the bills that talked about accreditation of voters, if you are not accredited, that's already in place. Using the beavers, no accreditation, no vote. That was what was done in the last election. If you are not properly accredited, you cannot actually vote, because we have done away with the incident form and all that. So people are no longer using that. There's this incremental progress that we have within the electoral system itself. And if you look at it even globally, where in the world do you have a clean, like they don't have problems? It's only Estonia. Estonia is a population of about 1.3 million people, and they have been adjudged as the best country with the best internet services. Last year I was there and I took a little study and to look at what was happening. And then if you put Estonia 1.3 million people, Delta State, where I come from, the population is much more than that, and you're looking at over 200 million people, where you're looking at internet infrastructure. We are still grappling with the fact that some people can't even make clean phone calls, even within Abuja. At times you call. Yesterday I was on a meeting, I couldn't do that. So and then just to weigh in on the issue of the last thing that we talked about, cleaning the register. I think citizens, people who are listening to this, should understand they also have a responsibility to do that, because registration is about your area, your village, your community, your ward, in fact down to your street, so you know everybody there. And maybe perhaps we should look at the extension of the time for the claims and objections. 1 week is rather too short to be able for people to gather, but people should know that it is their responsibility. The village chief, the woman leader, your youth leader, check the register and make sure that people who are not from your constituency are not there, because it doesn't help anybody. At the end of the day, you want to keep your constituency to say you are 2,000, 5,000 persons, and you are not even up to 100 people. It doesn't help you, because at the end of the day, you still will not get the numbers. But if you help to do all of that, the issue of delisting, if it comes with evidence, I'm sure everybody knows that.
So the lie that is being told is that the amenities that come to your community has something to do with your voting strength. Yes, so but we know that is not. We know that's not correct. Nigeria has a voting population, prospective voter population of about 93 point something million people. That is the voting strength of the whole of West Africa.
Exactly.
And it's on that note that we'll take a little break, and then when we come back, the program continues.
Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
Are you ready for change? Join Pairing Advocacy, an advancement center in Africa, PAACA. This program amplify electoral reform campaigns and provide citizens with opportunity to make meaningful contributions that will strengthen our electoral process. As a National Assembly, INEC, and other stakeholders work towards improving our electoral process, you too can be a part of the decision-making process. Remember, democracy is for the people. Let your voice be heard. This message is brought to you with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Nigeria is filled with cultures so beautifully diverse.
People so creatively endowed.
Land so richly blessed.
But all these mean nothing in the face of violence.
Let's live in peace, for only in peace can development happen.
The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain.
Let us serve our fatherland with love, strength, and faith.
One people, one nation.
This is a public service announcement from Radio Nigeria. Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
It's still the Electoral Reform Hour, and you can be part of this live program by sharing your comments via our social media platforms on X at PAACA.ng and with the hashtag at Electoral Reform Hour. And you can leave your questions and comments for us on Facebook via PAACA.ng and our WhatsApp number 081 6808 3424. The phone lines will be opened soon. Don't go anywhere.
Are you ready for change? Join Hearing Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PAACA. This program amplifies electoral reform campaigns and provides citizens with opportunity to make meaningful contributions that will strengthen our electoral process. As the National Assembly, INEC, and other stakeholders work towards improving our electoral process, you too can be a part of the decision-making process. Remember, democracy is for the people. Let your voice be heard. This message is brought to you with support from MacArthur Foundation.
By calling 091 509 10482, 091 5091 0483. I'll repeat the numbers again: 091 509 10482, 091 509 10483. You can also leave your questions and comments for us on WhatsApp at 081 680 83424 and on X at PAACA.ng and Facebook PAACA. It's your program. We will be expecting your calls, and you can actually join us right away. So, Faith, how do you see the proposed simultaneous conduct of presidential, senatorial, governorship, House of Representatives, and State House of Assembly elections? Hello, we have a caller. Good evening,
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done for our national issue there.
Can we meet you and where you're calling from, please?
My name is Adam West. I'm calling from Suleja.
Adam West from Suleja.
Yes,
thank you for calling.
That's my name.
Can we get your questions or comments, please?
Thank you. My comment is that my question or whatever I call the comment is that my problem of this country is just the electoral system. The electoral system has been a headache to me personally. I don't know of you or other people, but you see, the electoral system. Since if you can be in a Akwa Ibom and withdraw money with ATM card, you can be in Sokoto and withdraw money from Calabar. If they can introduce PCV in form of ATM card, which is since we are talking about discussing reform, it would have been better for us. Despite all the money, huge money that they are putting into INEC, instead of the giver, they introduce for us. The giver, they say we cannot, they can stop rigging. It doesn't stop any rigging. They can manipulate. They are still manipulating. They are still magic boxes. But with your ATM card, you just go, plug it in, press the number of the party, they show, then you press the party you want to vote for, and that ends it. And if you show in the INEC office, and you cannot change it, shit now. Instead of,
Thank you, Adam West. Thank you for calling.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. You, who wants to take Faith? You heard him. What do you want to react to that?
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that he came up to air his views, and unfortunately, this is the views of a lot of Nigerians and that's why I appreciate this program. I hope that people will listen in and get information, because from the point of view of what he's saying, for instance, we just mentioned there that the BVAS has addressed the issue of voter identity theft. If you don't have your BVAS, like there was a meeting we attended with the INEC chairman, and he says, unless you leave your head at home. So people should appreciate the fact that a lot of reforms have gone in, some improvement has gone in there. The BVAS as we have it is for voter accreditation, voter registration, and all of that, and that's technology. If you take, if you say people should use the PVC, just like they use the ATM cards, there are still some places in Nigeria where you cannot even use the ATM cards, where you don't even have the banks. You have some say, okay, they have what's it called, POS. The POS, but there's still some places that they don't still have that. So for you to be able to advocate for that kind of election to happen, we need to have the proper infrastructure, take care of the cybersecurity, and ensure that everybody has access. When you're going
just
to
do, hold on a bit. We have another caller.
Good evening.
Welcome. Good evening. Can you tell us where you're calling from and your name?
My name is Muhammad Kudu from Bida, Niger State.
From Niger State.
Although I joined you not quite long ago, but I know you are discussing election reform.
Yes, it's Electoral Reform Hour on Radio Nigeria.
Electoral reform is an interesting issue because for a very good democracy to be stable, there must be very good election. Actually, they have been having election, but my problem is the primary election they are holding in Nigeria. They are not holding it very well. It's because consensus method is not good. We should be undergoing primary or direct or indirect primary election. It's much more better than the consensus method. Because partiality can occur in consensus method, but in primary and direct and indirect primary election, everything will be very clear. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you. Faith, you already talked about the internal party democracy issues and what
pre-election issues.
And it's important that at the end of the day we look at that. You want to weigh in on? I held you down, Faith. When you were reacting to
the first caller.
Yes, maybe you just round up on that.
Yes, so just in summary, just to say that until we're able to have the right infrastructure, ensure that we have proper cybersecurity, and ensure that everybody can vote using the electronic method.
Yes, good evening. We have another caller. Please identify yourself, where you're calling from, and your name, please. Hello. Hello. I think we lost the call. Please try a call back. The numbers are still 091-509-10482. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Can we meet you, please?
Yes, I am Comrade Abdul Muttalab and I'm calling from Bida, Niger State.
Comrade, good evening.
Talking about the electoral reform, I think the policy is so good and so nice. Using the beavers machine and what. The policies are just too good. But the issue is we Nigerians, the manipulators, the hackers, and whatever, the anxious and greedy politicians are ready to hire and rent the hackers and whatever to hack the system. The policy is just too okay. And that's my little observation. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Thank you so very much. Alhaji Pai.
Yes. Going back to what Muhammad Kudu really has said on the primary election, you can see how the Electoral Act has taken primary election because of the every aspect of internal democracy starts from there. And that's why when it is not properly organized, it affects even the outcome of the election. Therefore, Mohamed Kudu is right. Really, the way some parties organize the primary election leaves much to be desired. And that's why there is the need for a proper and tougher, electoral reform as far as this conduct of primary election is concerned. So I actually agree with what Muhammad Kudu Bida has.
What about the issue around ATM cards and?
Yeah, in fact, that's what we said earlier. Really, it is excellent, but then as our development has not reached that level yet, and that's what my sister has said, the infrastructure is not yet, okay for us to go into that. Even the ATM that he's referring to, we still have so much challenges. It's not everywhere that you get to work with the ATM. And I have mentioned earlier, maybe he has not taken note of that, in that you just don't one day wake up and then start to do electronic voting. There has to be a legislation, on that before,
Alhaji, we have another caller. Good evening.
Hello,
Good evening.
It's the same Adam West calling back, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. My sister mentioned infrastructure around Nigeria. We have 774 local governments. And all these local governments, I think, I find it difficult to believe that we don't have ATM cards or ATM machines nearly all the 774 local governments. I find it too tough to believe. I think how long will it take INEC to establish all this within 774 local governments since we carry out election? We don't want to create room for rigging and killing our citizens because of ballot snatching. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. I think we'll leave that. And then the point is, Nigeria is not Lagos, Kano, and Nigeria is bigger than that. There are places you go to in Taraba State, you have to do 5 hours on bike, or even in Zamfara Kebbi, and even in Cross River. So the challenges that come with that are huge. Alhaji Pai, what are the logistical and administrative? Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Can we meet you?
Yeah. You are speaking to Ibrahim Orator, calling from Lafiaji, Kwara State.
Ibrahim from Lafiaji. Lafiaji.
Orator, Lafiaji, Kwara State.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, sir. My regards to the guests in the studio.
Thank you.
The issue of electoral reform in Nigeria, please, sir, I stand to be corrected. What we need is our attitudinal reform. It is better we reform our attitude. Even if they reform electoral law for 20 terms and we didn't reform our attitude, we don't get it right. Look at what is happening now. When they want to conduct this in the state and national assembly, the incumbent political officer that they will remain in the office. So the power and authority belongs to them. There's no how they will favor their party. So the best thing, we should reform our attitude. That is how we are going to get it right. I remain Orator from Lafiaji, Kwara State. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for calling. We appreciate your call. You can still call us on 091 50104882, 091 509 You can also leave your questions and comments for us on our WhatsApp at 081 680 83424. and on X at PAACA NG and Facebook PAACA. Back to my distinguished guests. I have Faith Nwadishi, the Executive Director of the Center for Transparency, Advocacy, and Alhaji Hussaini, a veteran resident electoral commissioner of 4 states, Ekiti, Kogi, Niger, and Plateau, spanning from 2011 to 2019. Now, I wanted to know about the logistical challenges that this one-day proposition and administrative challenges can pose. What are the challenges that you think, if we go into this, should it pass through, what are the challenges that you think we're going to go through?
Thank you very much for that question. You see, if we are to go for this one-day election with this type of election that we're having now, frankly speaking, the logistical problems will be Herculean, will be so much. But if, as our people have now been talking of the electronic voting or online voting, where the logistics will be reduced drastically, even the personnel. But if it is the current law that we are using of manual stroke electronic, I can say it will be a nightmare for the whole offices to be conducted in one day. Now you can imagine even the time when, as it is now, that is being staggered. We have problems with NURTW, retain, boat owners, the Okada people and others. And then talk of the personnel and the electoral materials that will be required. You now remember that even the ballot boxes that would be required is no more like we have now. Maybe for the president, vice president, one box. We have for senator, House of Reps. But now, if it is for one day, we are going to have that of the governors and that of the state assembly members. So definitely the requirement of logistics will be too much. And then the demand for personnel and also the reticulation of even network and the fear, that is even more important, of in case, God forbid, something flows up. The entire thing is now, affected. But if it is this one that is staggered, you now say, okay, during the presidential election, we have seen that ABC, is not much needed to be, certain T's need to be crossed and I's needed to be dotted.
Hello?
Yeah, Alhaji, we have another caller. Good evening.
Hello?
Good evening,
good evening.
caller. Can we meet you, please?
Thank you. This is Envo Jeremiah from Mararaba, local government national state.
Envo Jeremiah.
Yes, I have a very few points to make. The first of all of this electoral reform and the whole thing, they have to first of all reform judiciary, whereby somebody who won an election and litigation has been established in the court of competent jurisdiction when facts and evidence have been presented at the end of the day, even when the facts were glaring, the whole thing will be upturned in favor of the led government or the party in power. Secondly, I heard the honorable guest was saying that the electronic election is not possible in Nigeria. If it is not possible, at least the law should be made compulsory for all the city of the incumbents to vacate the seat before even the election to take on, so that they will stop using the government machinery, the machineries and resources to fight their opponents. In that way, we have a very credible, fair and free election that will be very satisfactory to all the voters. Not a situation where everybody will go and queue up in the queue under the sun or rain. At the end of the day, your vote will not be counted. That is very painful. And when this thing is done, I believe the attitude should follow to avoid and begin to face up all these criminals call themselves politicians and leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know if you heard him. First said votes are counting, so we need to shift from that. Faith, you want to weigh in on that? We have very little time to, and then in doing that, you also share your final thoughts around the stakeholders, how they weigh in and ensure that these amendments, the ones that are people-centric, pass through for better elections. And Alhaji, you also around these old issues, the stakeholder engagements. What are the things that you think are very critical that we need to do in very small time?
Thank you very much. I agree with him to the extent that we need to rein in the power of incumbency when it comes to the issues of elections and that and the role that they play in our elections. We maybe we can have a legal solution to that. But again, let me just also say that for the electoral reforms, the way we have them, every stakeholder should be on board. And I must commend the electoral umpire, because I've seen that, especially from recommendations we make as civil society organizations, as observers, every electoral cycle, you see these recommendations being brought on board, and that's why we're having the progressive reforms that we're having. And then I agree also with the last but one speaker who talked about attitudinal change. These laws are there. It is for people to implement them. It is for citizens to know that vote buying is wrong. You don't have to come out on election day because you hear that somebody was giving 1,000 naira or 5,000 naira. It is your responsibility to ensure that the people that you have in your constituency, that their names are genuine names, they are genuine people. You can also add value to that. It is the responsibility of the political class to do proper voter education, because at the end of the day, like I said, they are the ones who benefit from this. So every hand must be on deck. The bill that is before the National Assembly, especially that of the House of Reps, it's a good one. There are some very good things. There are some other ones that we shouldn't really talk about, because these things are already being taken care of. And let me congratulate PAACA for this program, and I hope that Nigerians will use the opportunity of this program to get educated about what is happening within our electoral cycles and the reforms that must come to bear.
Thank you, Alhaji.
Yeah, thank you. Really, all stakeholders, I must say, they must actually see an election as, the basis of governance, because the governance depends wholly and solely on how the election has been conducted. We cannot, argue about that, because a good election will produce good leaders that will actually give good governance. Now, therefore, right from the election management body, which is INEC, there has to be, to use the Adamu's word, attitudinal change. In fact, INEC is trying a lot, but there is still room for improvement. So also the political parties. Parties, I'm sorry to say, many believe that this election is a do or die, and that's why the aspect of violence and then introduction of different styles of corruption, like vote buying and stuffing of ballot boxes, and still persist. So the parties too must get properly organized, and there too attitudinal change. The security that provides security during election must also be up and doing. Now, coming to the voters, we must actually look at who are those that are, to use the word inverted comma, qualified. It's not because it's my religion, it's not because it's my tribe, it's not because we are from the same area, or maybe he has given me money. But what does the manifesto of these parties and the candidates say? How are these candidates and parties going to improve on my welfare and that of other citizens? I think if collectively all hands are on deck, to ensure that it's a free, fair, and credible election, we are going to have good governance and we'll all be better for it.
Well, special thanks to our guests, Alhaji Hussaini Pai Sarkin Yaki of Pai, and the current resident and the former resident electoral commissioner of Plateau State, former resident electoral commissioner in Ekiti, Kogi, and Niger, and Faith Nwadishi, executive director of Center for Transparency Advocacy, and an EITI board member, former.
Exactly.
Yes, but now very deep in electoral reform issues. To our dear listener, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Electoral Reform Hour, brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PAACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. After this show, if you have any question, you can reach us via text or WhatsApp on 081-6808-3424. We especially appreciate the contributions of our funders, MacArthur Foundation, our engineers, our engineer on duty, Buchi Nwawe, Muko Adefemi Joshua, and the ICT personnel are Mohammed Sadi, studio manager Finehas Udu Eyo, and producer Ando Hemba Ohen. Supervisor for the program is Hussein Akila MNI. The facilitating crew members are Abu Grace and Jeremiah Mpume. We apologize for the questions we could not take today, but the conversation continues next week Sunday, same time, same station. My name is Ezenwa Nwago. You are saying good night.